Humanity had always imagined first contact as a moment of triumph or terror. Either we would stand as equals among the stars, or we would fight for survival against something greater than ourselves. No one had prepared for disappointment. The Galactic Union arrived without spectacle. No towering warships, no apocalyptic weapons. Just a single vessel, smooth, silent, and impossibly elegant, slipping into Earth's orbit like it had always belonged there. They spoke every human language before we even asked how. They smiled, or at least their version of it. And they welcomed us. "You are young," they said, "but you are not alone." Within weeks, humanity was introduced to a vast interstellar network of species. Hundreds of civilizations. Thousands of worlds. Trade routes, knowledge exchanges, cultural archives stretching back millions of years. It should have been overwhelming. Instead, it felt curated, carefully managed. Like a museum tour where humanity was the newest exhibit. Behind the diplomacy and celebration, the Union began its evaluation. Every species that joined underwent it: biological, psychological, technological. A complete scan to determine their place in the galactic hierarchy. Humans, they assumed, would rank low. Primitive. Emotional. Short-lived. Deep within the Union's research vessel, far removed from Earth's celebrations, a team of xenobiologists began their work. Dr. Ilaris Venn, a senior genetic analyst, stared at the holographic structure rotating slowly in front of her. Human DNA. She had seen thousands of genetic codes across the galaxy. Elegant double helices, crystalline chains, even fluid-based genomes that shifted form with environment. Compared to them, "This is inefficient," one of her assistants muttered. Ilaris didn't disagree. Human DNA was cluttered, full of redundancies, non-coding regions, fragments that served no clear purpose. Nearly 98% of it appeared useless. Evolutionary leftovers. Or so it seemed. "Catalog the active regions," she instructed. "Ignore the rest for now." The assistant complied, filtering out the noise. The structure simplified instantly. Cleaner. Logical. Predictable. Ilaris frowned. "Restore the full sequence." The clutter returned, messy, tangled, chaotic. And yet, her gaze narrowed. "Zoom into section 7A. The display obeyed. A small region expanded, revealing repeating patterns buried within the so-called junk. "Run a comparison," she said. The system processed the data. Match. None. That wasn't unusual. New species often had unique sequences. But this. "Run a structural analysis." Another pause. Pattern detected. The assistant blinked. "That's not possible." Ilaris leaned closer. "Show me." The system highlighted segments of DNA, scattered, irregular, but undeniably connected. Like pieces of a puzzle spread across a vast field. Individually meaningless. Together, intentional. Reassemble the sequence. That would require. Do it. The assistant hesitated, then complied. The system began aligning fragments, stitching together distant sections of DNA based on structural similarities. It took longer than expected. Far longer. Because the pattern wasn't simple. It was layered. Fragmented. Hidden beneath millions of years of mutation and noise. And yet it held. When the reconstruction finally stabilized, the rune fell silent. The resulting structure wasn't biological. It was geometric. Precise. Engineered. "That's impossible," the assistant whispered. Ilaris didn't respond. Her mind was already racing through possibilities. Natural evolution didn't produce symmetry like this. Not at this scale. Not this deeply embedded. Run it against known genetic templates. The system searched the Union's vast database. Thousands of species. Millions of variations. The result came back instantly. No match found. The chill, subtle but undeniable, ran through the room. "Could it be contamination?" the assistant asked. "An external modification?" Ilaris shook her head slowly. "If it were recent, this. But this," she gestured to the structure. "This is integrated. Seamlessly. It's been part of their genome for a very long time." How long? Ilaris hesitated. Longer than their recorded history. The assistant laughed nervously. So what are you saying? That someone modified their DNA before they even became a spacefaring species. Ilaris didn't answer. Because the alternative was worse. Much worse. Expand the analysis, she said. Search for additional patterns. The system complied. Moments passed. Multiple anomalies detected. Not one pattern. Not two. Dozens. Scattered across the human genome. Each one hidden differently. Some fragmented. Some overlapping. Some buried so deeply they barely registered. But they were all there. Waiting. The assistant took a step back. This looks like encryption. Ilaris felt her pulse spike. Encryption. In a biological structure. That's absurd, she said automatically. But even as she spoke, she knew it wasn't. Because the patterns weren't random. They followed rules. Complex rules. The kind used to hide information. Seal this room, Ilaris ordered. The doors locked instantly. All data from this analysis is now classified under Union Directive Black. The assistant froze. That's restricted to existential threats. Ilaris kept her eyes on the hologram. Yes, she said quietly. I'm aware. Far above them, Earth celebrated its place among the stars. Unaware that, for the first time since joining the Galactic Union, humanity was no longer being seen as harmless. Ilaris stared at the reconstructed pattern one last time. At its precision, its intention, its impossibility. And for the first time in her long career, she asked a question she had never needed to before. Not what are humans, but who hid something inside them? And more importantly, why hadn't anyone found it until now? The room remained sealed for 13 standard hours. No one entered. No one left. And inside, the illusion of junk DNA was quietly dismantled. Ilaris hadn't moved. The holographic model of human DNA hovered before her, now layered with highlights, threads of hidden structure woven through what had once been dismissed as evolutionary debris. Her assistant, Ref, looked exhausted. I've cross-referenced every known genomic encoding method, he said, voice strained. Nothing matches. Not union, not pre-union, not even theoretical constructs. Ilaris didn't respond immediately. Her focus was on something deeper. Run adaptive sequencing. Ref blinked. Adaptive? On biological data. Do it. The system hesitated, then complied. Instead of treating the DNA as static, it began analyzing how the sequences behaved under simulated conditions. Temperature shifts, radiation exposure, chemical stress, even quantum-level fluctuations. At first, nothing happened. The pattern changed. Ref leaned forward. Did you see that? I did, Ilaris said quietly. The highlighted regions shifted. Not randomly. Purposefully. Segments that had aligned before now rearranged themselves into new configurations, like a lock rotating into a different combination. That's not mutation, Ref whispered. That's response. Ilaris felt something cold settle in her chest. Record all variations, she ordered. Map transitions between states. The system complied, generating a branching web of possibilities. Each state of the DNA revealed a slightly different version of the hidden pattern. One pattern became 2. 2 became 4. Then 8. Exponentially increasing. Its layering, Ilaris realized. Ref looked at her. Layering? Not one message, she said. Multiple. Stacked on top of each other. Each one accessible under different conditions. Ref stared at the display. That would require an intelligence far beyond standard genetic engineering, Ilaris finished. Silence returned. Heavy. Uncomfortable. Because this wasn't just advanced. This was deliberate concealment on a scale no one had ever attempted. Try stress-triggered activation, Ilaris said. Ref hesitated. Define stress. Ilaris paused. Simulate lethal conditions. The system ran the scenario. Extreme trauma. Cellular breakdown. Near-death thresholds. For a moment, nothing happened. The DNA lit up, Every hidden segment activated at once. The chaotic genome snapped into terrifying clarity. The patterns aligned, not as fragments, not as scattered pieces, but as a complete structure. Reth staggered back. That's not a message. Ilaris's voice was barely above a whisper. No. She swallowed. It's a system. The display pulsed. Lines of encoded information unfolded, far too complex to be understood in real time. Mathematical structures, energy configurations, biological override sequences. It wasn't just data. It was instruction. Shut it down, Reth said suddenly. Ilaris didn't move. Doctor, shut it down. Her eyes were locked on the display, because something else had appeared. A repeating sequence. Simple. And utterly out of place. It was counting. Why would DNA count? Reth asked, voice shaking. Ilaris didn't answer. Because she already knew the implication. It wasn't counting numbers. It was counting time. Stop the simulation, she said sharply. The system halted. The DNA returned to its previous chaotic state. The patterns vanished. Gone. As if they had never existed. Reth exhaled shakily. What was that? Ilaris stepped back, finally breaking her gaze. That, she said slowly, was something we were not meant to see. Reth shook his head. No. No, if it's there, it can be studied. Decoded. That's what we do. Ilaris turned to him. For millions of cycles, the Union has catalogued life across the galaxy, she said. We have seen every form of genetic complexity imaginable. She gestured toward the DNA. And none of it behaves like this. Reth hesitated. So what are you saying? Ilaris's expression hardened. I'm saying this is not biology pretending to be code. She took a breath. This is code pretending to be biology. The words hung in the air. Heavy. Impossible. Reth looked back at the hologram. If this is real, then why hasn't anyone noticed before? Humans study their own DNA. Because it's hidden, Ilaris said. Not just structurally, but contextually. He frowned. Meaning? It only reveals itself under specific conditions. Conditions humans rarely replicate in controlled environments. Reth's eyes widened. Extreme stress, he said. Exactly. A realization began to form. Slow. Terrifying. Run external observation logs, Ilaris said. From where? Human conflict zones. Reth hesitated, then complied. The system pulled data from recent human activities, battles, disasters, survival scenarios. Moments where humans had been pushed beyond their limits. At first, it looked like noise. Unstructured. Chaotic. Then the system highlighted anomalies. Wait, Reth said. That's correlation, Ilaris confirmed. In multiple recorded incidents, humans had exhibited deviations. Impossible endurance. Unexplained recovery. Brief spikes in cognitive and physical performance that exceeded known biological limits. Each one dismissed as adrenaline. Statistical outliers. For now, they weren't random. They're activations, Reth said, voice barely audible. Ilaris nodded. Partial ones. The room felt smaller. The air heavier. Because the implication was unavoidable now. This isn't dormant, Reth said. It's waiting. Ilaris turned back to the hologram. To the chaotic, inefficient, beautifully deceptive structure of human DNA. And for the first time, she didn't see randomness. She saw a lock. And somewhere, hidden beneath layers of time, mutation, and deliberate misdirection, was something waiting to be unlocked. Reth swallowed. What happens if someone triggers it fully? Ilaris didn't answer immediately, because she didn't know. But as she stared at the silent genome, one thought echoed in her mind. Cold. Unshakable. This wasn't a discovery. It was a countdown. And they had just started it. The first full activation did not happen in a laboratory. It did not happen under controlled observation. It did not happen where the Galactic Union could prepare for it. It happened in chaos. Colony Erebus 9 was supposed to be routine. A mining outpost on the edge of Union space. Cold, isolated and unimportant. The kind of place where nothing ever happened. Until something did. The distress signal reached the Union relay network in fragments. Static. Broken transmissions. Screams. Then silence. Ilaris was already on edge when the alert reached her. Human colony under attack, Reth said, pulling up the data. Unknown hostile presence. No Union forces nearby. Ilaris felt that cold sensation again. Show me everything. The footage flickered to life. Dark corridors. Emergency lights flashing red. Smoke filling the air. Human voices shouting over each other. They're inside. Doors won't hold. We need evac now. Then something moved in the frame. Too fast. Reth froze the image. The shape was blurred, elongated, almost wrong, as if the camera itself couldn't process it properly. Enhance. The system tried. Error. Visual data incomplete. That's not a known species, Reth said. Ilaris didn't respond. Her focus had shifted. Find me a human subject, she said. Anyone. Track them. The system complied, scanning through the chaos until it locked onto a single figure. A human male. Security designation, Corporal Daniel Hayes. He was running, breathing hard, injured, blood trailing behind him as he stumbled through the corridors. Vitals? Ilaris asked. Critical. He shouldn't still be moving. But he was. Barely. The footage cut to another angle. Hayes slammed into a sealed door, fumbling with the controls. Come on, come on. Behind him, that thing moved again. Closer now. The door wouldn't open. The system was dead. Hayes turned. For a moment, everything slowed. Ilaris leaned forward. Zoom in. The camera focused on his face. And something else. A flicker. Wait, Reth said. Go back. The system rewound a fraction of a second. Hayes's expression changed. Not emotionally. Physiologically. His pupils contracted. Then expanded beyond normal limits. His breathing stopped. Completely. What's happening? Reth whispered. Ilaris didn't answer. Because she already recognized it. Run genetic activity overlay, she said. The system scanned the footage. Then highlighted something impossible. Hayes's DNA was changing. Not mutating. Not degrading. Rewriting. Full activation, Ilaris said under her breath. On screen, Hayes straightened. The fear was gone. The pain was gone. Even the hesitation was gone. The creature lunged. And Hayes moved. Faster than he should have. Faster than the camera could properly track. He didn't dodge. He predicted. Before the creature even completed its strike, Hayes was already somewhere else. Reth stared in disbelief. That's not reflex, that's anticipation, Ilaris finished. Hayes grabbed a broken piece of metal from the floor. Improvised. Unplanned. Perfect. The creature attacked again. And this time, Hayes countered. One movement. Precise. Final. The creature collapsed. Silence filled the corridor. Reth exhaled slowly. He killed it. But Ilaris wasn't looking at the creature. She was looking at Hayes. Because it wasn't over. He stood there, completely still. He looked directly at the camera. Reth froze. That's impossible. He shouldn't even know it's there. But Hayes wasn't just looking. He was focusing. Ilaris felt her pulse spike. Zoom further. The system enhanced the image. Hayes's eyes. They weren't normal. The pupils had stabilized into something unnatural. Symmetrical. Geometric. Like a pattern. His brain activity? Ilaris asked. Then froze. It's off the charts. How? I don't know. It's like multiple processes running at once. Parallel cognition. I've never seen anything like it. Ilaris leaned closer. Because now, something else was happening. Hayes tilted his head slightly, as if listening to something no one else could hear. He spoke, but not in English. Not in any known human language. The system struggled to process it. Language not recognized. Reth's voice dropped to a whisper. What is that? Ilaris didn't answer. Because she was already running comparisons. Cross-referencing the sounds. The structure. The rhythm. And when the result came back, she felt something she hadn't felt in a very long time. Match found, unknown sequence, source, human DNA pattern. It's not a language, Ilaris said slowly. Reth looked at her. Then what is it? Ilaris stared at the screen. At the human who was no longer behaving like one. It's the code, she said. Hayes stopped speaking. For a moment, he just stood there. Then his body shifted again. The patterns in his eyes faded. His breathing returned. His posture slackened. And just like that, he collapsed. Unconscious. The corridor fell silent once more. Reth swallowed hard. Did it deactivate? Ilaris didn't respond immediately. Her eyes were still locked on the playback. On the moment Hayes had spoken. On the moment something ancient, something buried, had surfaced. Finally she said, yes. The pause. But not completely. Reth felt a chill run down his spine. What do you mean? Ilaris turned to him. Whatever that was, she said, it didn't come from outside. Her voice dropped. It came from him. Reth shook his head. No, that's not possible. Humans don't have memory. Ilaris interrupted. He stopped. Because that was exactly what it had looked like. Not transformation. Not mutation. Recognition. Ilaris turned back to the screen. To the human lying unconscious on the floor. And for the first time, she understood what the message in their DNA really was. It wasn't just information. It wasn't just a system. It was a reminder. And humanity had just begun to remember. The Union did not announce what happened on Erebus 9. They buried it. Officially, the colony had suffered a localized biological incident. Unstable environment. Structural failure. Loss of life. Case closed. Unofficially, every high-ranking member of the Galactic Union received a classified briefing within 12 cycles. Ilaris stood at the center of it. The chamber was silent. Representatives from dozens of species watched as the footage played. Hayes running. Hayes changing. Hayes speaking. And finally, Hayes becoming something else. When the recording ended, no one spoke. Because no one knew what to say. It was the oldest species in the chamber that broke the silence. A being whose kind had witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations long before humanity discovered fire. You are certain, it said slowly, that this is natural? Ilaris met its gaze. No, she said. A ripple moved through the chamber. Another voice spoke. Sharper. Colder. Then we are dealing with genetic interference. Identify the origin and remove it. Ilaris shook her head. It cannot be removed. Silence again. Explain. Ilaris activated the projection. Human DNA filled the chamber once more, but this time not as chaos. As structure. We believed human DNA was inefficient, she began. Redundant. Disorganized. She paused. We were wrong. The patterns emerged. Layer after layer unfolding. Not randomly. But deliberately. This is not evolution, Ilaris said. It is architecture. Murmurs spread across the chamber. Encoded within their genome, she continued, is a system designed to activate under specific conditions, primarily extreme stress, near-death scenarios, or existential threats. Purpose, one of the council members asked. Ilaris hesitated, because this was the part she couldn't fully prove. But the data, the patterns, the message. Survival, she said. The word echoed. Another council member leaned forward. You are suggesting the species was engineered for resilience. No, Ilaris said quietly. She looked at them. At all of them. I am suggesting they engineered themselves. The chamber erupted. That is impossible. No species achieves that level of control. Not without collapsing. Enough. The oldest voice spoke again. And the chamber fell silent. Ilaris continued. We have decoded a fragment of the embedded sequences. She hesitated. Not all of it. Not even close. but enough to understand its origin. The projection shifted. The DNA patterns rearranged, simplified, translated, and then words appeared, not in any spoken language, but in meaning, direct, unfiltered. We were not the first to reach the stars. A chill swept through the chamber. Ilaris swallowed. There is more. The message continued. We were not the last. We were unprepared. The council members leaned forward. We built wonders. We conquered limits. We believed ourselves eternal. The words paused. We were wrong. Silence. Heavy. Unavoidable. What destroyed them? Someone asked. Ilaris shook her head. The message does not specify. Then what is the purpose of this archive? Ilaris looked back at the projection. Because now, the final part appeared. If you are reading this, we failed. No one moved. This is not a warning. The pause. It is a contingency. The chamber felt smaller, colder. What does that mean? Reth whispered. Ilaris didn't answer immediately, because she already knew. But saying it out loud made it real. It means, she said slowly, they expected to disappear. Another pause. And they made sure something of them wouldn't. The projection shifted again, now showing the full extent of the encoded system. Not just messages. Not just data. Protocols. Activation sequences. Biological overrides. Cognitive expansions. Everything we witnessed on Erebus 9, Ilaris said. That was only the beginning. The council stared at her. How much of this system is active? One asked. Ilaris hesitated. We don't know. That answer unsettled them more than anything else. Can it be controlled? No. Contained? No. Predicted? Ilaris shook her head. No. The chamber fell into silence once more. Because for the first time in the history of the Galactic Union, they were facing something they did not understand. Something they could not control. Something that had been hiding, not in the shadows of space, but in plain sight, inside a species they had dismissed as harmless. The oldest member spoke again. Quiet. Measured. Then we must ask the only question that matters. Ilaris looked up. What happens when all of it activates? She had no answer at all. Far away from the chamber, on a quiet medical station, Corporal Daniel Hayes opened his eyes. The monitors around him spiked instantly. Doctors rushed in. Voices overlapping. Confused. Urgent. But Hayes didn't react. He just stared at the ceiling. Too calm. Solid. He spoke. Again, not in English. Again, not in any known language. But this time, the system didn't fail. Because the Union had learned. And they were listening. The translation began. Slowly. Carefully. And when the first words appeared, every system in the facility went silent. Phase 1, confirmed. Hayes blinked. And for just a moment, his eyes reflected something ancient. Something patient. Something that had been waiting a very long time. Humanity hadn't just remembered. It had started. The message spread before the Union could contain it. They tried. They locked the data behind Directive Black. Restricted access. Isolated networks. Quantum-sealed archives. It didn't matter. Because the signal wasn't traveling through their systems. It was traveling through humans. Reports began to surface across Union space. At first, isolated. Dismissible. A pilot navigating a collapsing wormhole without instruments, and surviving. A scientist solving an equation that had stumped entire civilizations, in minutes. A child describing star systems that didn't exist on any map. Individually, they were anomalies. Together, they were a pattern. Ilaris stood in the observation chamber, watching the incoming data cascade across the display. Hundreds of incidents. Then thousands. Then more. They're increasing, Reth said, his voice tight. Frequency, intensity, it's accelerating. Ilaris didn't look away from the screen. I know. What do we do? That question again. The one no one could answer. Ilaris exhaled slowly. For now, we observe. Reth turned to her sharply. Observe? That's it? We're watching an entire species change into something we don't understand and we're just... Yes, she said, cutting him off. Her voice was calm. Too calm. Because we already made the only mistake that matters. Reth froze. We looked too closely, she said. Silence. On the far side of Union space, Corporal Daniel Hayes was no longer in a hospital. He had left. No one saw him go. No alarms triggered. No doors opened. He was simply gone. The Union called an emergency assembly. Not a council. Not a discussion. A decision. They are becoming a threat, one representative said. We must act now. Act how? Another snapped. We don't understand the mechanism. Then we eliminate the variables, the first replied coldly. The implication hung in the air. Genocide. No. The voice cut through the chamber. Ilaris. Every eye turned to her. You will not survive that, she said. A murmur spread. You assume they are defenseless, she continued. That this is uncontrolled evolution. She shook her head. It's not. The projection activated. Not DNA this time. Patterns. Behavioral. Strategic. They are not changing randomly, Ilaris said. They are stabilizing. Stabilizing into what? Someone demanded. Ilaris met their gaze. Into what they used to be. Silence. Cold. Heavy. Impossible, a council member said. Ilaris didn't respond. Because at that exact moment, every system in the chamber flickered. Then went dark. For the first time in Union history, the central network went offline. Panic erupted. What's happening? System failure. This isn't possible. The main display activated. Not by them. A single symbol appeared. Geometric. Precise. Familiar. Ilaris felt her breath catch. She had seen it before. In the DNA. The room went silent. Because they all understood, in that moment, this wasn't a malfunction. It was contact. A voice followed. Not spoken. Not transmitted. Understood. Directly. You were not meant to find this. No one moved. No one spoke. But now that you have, the symbol shifted. Expanded. You are part of it. Reth whispered, part of what? Ilaris didn't answer. Because she already knew. The final message appeared. Unmistakable. We are not returning. The pause. We never left. The chamber trembled. Not physically. Existentially. Cross human space. Millions of people stopped. Not in fear. In recognition. Memories surfaced. Not personal ones. Ancient ones. Of stars they had once walked among. Of wars they had once survived. Of mistakes they had once made. And of a promise. Ilaris stared at the message. At the truth hidden in plain sight. At the answer that had been there all along. The Union had studied humans for centuries. Measured them. Ranked them. Dismissed them. But they had asked the wrong question. Not what are humans, but what are they hiding? The screen flickered one last time. Then went dark. The network returned. Systems stabilized. Everything normal. Except nothing was normal anymore. Reth looked at Ilaris. His voice barely steady. What do we do now? Ilaris took a long breath. Then slowly, she smiled. Not in fear. Not in panic. But in understanding. We stop looking at them like a new species, she said. Reth frowned. Then what are they? Ilaris turned toward the stars. Her answer was quiet. Certain. Final. They're not the newest civilization in the galaxy. The pause. They're the oldest. Far beyond Union space. Beyond mapped systems. Beyond even the oldest known stars. Something stirred. Not awakening. Remembering. And for the first time in millions of years, humanity was no longer alone. Because the greatest secret the aliens never found was never hidden from them. It was hidden for them. Encrypted in human DNA.